Hello, hi, and thank you for joining. My name is Olamide. Um, this is February, and I'm grateful for everyone who joined the series all through the month of January. I'd encourage you to keep at it either on YouTube or on TikTok, or even if you just read the mails I sent to you. Well done. Let's keep a perfect streak in the month of February. Right, in the month of February, we're going to be exploring the series Who God Is. And on this week's episode, we're going to be exploring the fact that God is merciful. God is merciful. And let me tell you a quick story on why we're doing this or why I think this is important. In the month of January, I read the book of Job. If you're familiar with the story of Job, he went through a trying time, but eventually bounced back. And one thing I realized, one lesson I learned from reading that book was the fact that aside every other lessons that we see there, God was a lot misrepresented, either by Job or his friends. As a matter of fact, the first time I read the book of Job, there was one of his friends, I think his last friend to speak before God then decided to speak to Job. It was the one I considered the smartest, the wisest. It's the one who said this phrase, I have allowed age to speak. I thought that the fact that people are older means they were wiser, but I've realized that no, there's a spirit in man and the spirit of God gives him understanding. Brilliant entry. And I usually thought, oh, this guy must be very smart. But on reading the book of Job again last month, I realized that he made very important points, but at the same time, he also didn't fully grasp who God is, and that's quite familiar with a lot of us, even well-meaning people, even pastors, or even people who are atheists. A lot of people don't know who God is, and that's why I think it's important to explore this series. So I would recommend you stick to this channel, stick to the videos, read the mails, and make sure you turn up for every week's devotion on the series Who God Is. So let's go right into it. On today's episode, we're exploring who God is. God is merciful. And our text for today is going to be taken from Lamentations chapter 3 from verse 22 to 23. This is a very popular verse. There's a song about it. The verse says, the faithful love of the Lord never ends. His mercy never ceases. Great is his faithfulness. His mercies begin afresh each morning. The faithful love of the Lord never ends. His mercies never cease. Great is his faithfulness. His mercies begin each morning. See, I went to the dictionary to check the definition of mercy, and this is what I found. That mercy is the compassion or forgiveness shown towards someone whom it is within one's power to punish or harm. So you get the idea. Someone you could hurt because of what they've done to you. You have the right, you have the power to do it, but deciding not to do it means you're showing mercy to the person. And in the context of God, it makes sense, right? He has the right to punish us. Why? Because he told them, don't do what you've done. He created us. He has the right. He has the power because he's an all-powerful God. So the decision to not punish us for what we've done describes mercy. And we're saying God is merciful. So let's go on. You see, the very idea of God, that's the concept God, the very idea of God often brings an overwhelming sense of awe. I mean, after all, we're talking about an all-powerful being, right? And awe on both sides. For those who believe in God, those who believe that God exists, awe because sometimes we're just scared, sometimes we're frightened, sometimes we're careful. I hope I don't get to do something that will make God angry. To some extent, that's good. And also awe to the other side, even those who don't believe God exists. The very mention or discussion or topic about God makes them to think, could there really be an all-powerful being somewhere up in the sky or somewhere wherever that has that amount of power to do whatever he likes? And in their case, rather than revere him, they rebel, or they have there's just this rebellious mindset that, you know what, I don't care, I don't believe he is. So, but my point is that the concept, the idea of God inspires awe in everybody. And just because of the fact that he's powerful, That awe is a certainty you would see when you talk about when the topic of God is discussed or when the name of God is mentioned. But this awe is good, like I said. But then again, because of how we perceive it, because of how we interpret it, without a good understanding of who he really is, it could lead to wrong perceptions about him. And that's why I think exploring and understanding that, yes, he is powerful, he is merciful, is really important. It shapes your perspective, it shapes your worldview, it shapes your relationship as a Christian. And for someone, maybe you're just about to explore Christianity, it's also important you know that maybe you're an atheist or you're someone who you did not believe in it or you couldn't grasp the idea, and now you're coming to a faith that says there is an all-powerful God somewhere who can do as he likes, who can punish you for your sins, who, if you don't believe in him, you can eventually be punished. That can be scary, right? I also want you to know that this God we're talking about is also merciful. And that's the point message of today's um, um, devotion. God is merciful. He has the right, he has the power, but yet he can choose to have mercy. He can choose not to punish because he is merciful. It is part of his person. Just for example, like you see a judge sitting in the law court, he can decide that same judge that sits on that chair and tells one person, you get a parking ticket, you go to 5 years imprisonment, you are going to die. Don't be surprised that same God has a son. That same judge has a son at home. He's also a father. If that judge can sit or can handle those positions correctly and doesn't change who he is, how much more God? He is a judge, but he is God. He is a judge, but he's merciful. This perception is this mindset, this understanding about God is very, very important. You see, yes, he has the right and power to punish us for our wrongs, but he also has the power to choose mercy. That's the heart of Christianity. Though we sinned and deserved punishment, God chose forgiveness instead because he is merciful. So each time you think about the idea that there is a God who is all powerful and can do whatever he likes, also back that understanding. If you're the kind of person that knowledge about God moves you to the point where you're just like, you're frightened, you're being too careful, also remember he's merciful. And this is important because either as Christians or someone who is exploring being a Christian, when you do, or as a Christian, you would make mistakes. That's a guarantee. You're going to do something wrong. Take, for example, if there was something you used to do before you're trying to stop, it's unlikely. Don't get me wrong. The power of God can cause a dramatic change such that what the person used to do before, he would not do it again. But most often than not, it's unlikely. Most often than not, once or twice you would fall. Once or twice you would make that mistake again. But if the only understanding about you have about God is the fact that he can punish you for what you've done wrong, you would run away. I tell you that. But if you also know that this God is merciful, see how Lamentations chapter 3, that verse we read says it. He says that the faithful love of God never ceases. His mercies never cease. He says, great is his faithfulness. His mercies begin afresh each morning. That's the kind of God. So when you find yourself and you make a mistake, don't ever run away from God because you know him to be a powerful God. Run to him also because you know him to be a merciful God. Do you get the point? And that's the one of the things I hope we achieve in this month, to see who God really is. Yes, he is all powerful. I'm probably throughout the series that I wouldn't emphasize a lot about the power of God, about how mighty, how big, because the misconceptions, the people straying away from God that we see a lot today is because of a lot of emphasis on that part of him, which makes all people forget the relational aspect, how caring he is, how much he wants to help you. He doesn't want to judge you every time. He also wants to help you. And that's one thing I think is really important. And I think is going to be helpful in your walk with God, either that as a Christian or as a new Christian. So God is merciful. And it's important that you have this for the rest of your life. Harm yourself with this if you're a Christian. Because even people, if you've listened to conversion stories of people who maybe converted into Christianity from other religion, one thing they would usually tell you, one thing I've always heard, is the fact that they were drawn by this idea that there is a God, that this same God, someone can call him Father. Isn't that amazing? That's who God is. God is merciful. So learn this. Run to God. Don't run away from him because of your perceived belief, or even the fact it is the truth is powerful. But don't run away from him because of that mind, that understanding. Because though he has the right and he has the power, he also has the power to choose mercy, because that is who he is. God is merciful. I hope that has been helpful. Throughout this month, I'm encouraging you to build a devotional playlist with me on YouTube. I'm building a playlist of just songs that describes the person of God, and I'll attach the link to the video description. Feel free to put in any song that describes it in any language. I will make sure to listen to everything and just communicate to you a revelation of who God is. Let's do that throughout this month of February, and I'll see you next week.